Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It is the Friday's news dump. That's right, we're going to tell you everything that's happening and talk for way too long about it. So I hope you're interested in neurological conditions and McDonald's and, of course, being a citizen of a country you immigrated to when you're 0 years old. Anyways, that's just some of our stories. Let's go ahead and go to the headlines so you can hear about every single thing we're talking about today. Today on Before Coffee. Neurological pathologies is the leading cause of all health problems in the world.
And McDonald's has systems outages, and Nissan and Honda are getting together in electric vehicles.
Using coercion, Russia has successfully imposed its citizenship in Ukraine's occupied territories.
Michigan father is convicted of manslaughter, and SpaceX Starship disintegrates after completing most of test flight.
True Italians, the children left waiting for citizenship.
And beware the Ides of March on today, which is March 15th, 2024, on Before Coffee.
All right, for our first news story, let's talk about global health. This is coming out of Sciences by Le Figaro with AFP. Alzheimer's, strokes, migraines. Worldwide, these disorders have jumped by more than half since 1990, now surpassing cardiovascular problems. Pathologies that affect the nervous system, such as an Alzheimer's type dementia, but also migraines or the consequences of a stroke, are now the main global cause of health problems, according to a large study published today on March 15th. According to this work, published in the Lancet Neurology, is no longer cardiovascular pathologies, but those of neurological nature in a broad sense, which cause the most harm in people still alive. What causes the most harm to people not alive? Just wondering. That's just a really way to name it, which causes the most harm to people still alive. In 2021, 43% of the world's population, or 3.4 billion people, were affected by a neurological disorder. I wonder if they included long COVID in this, because there has been studies on long COVID causing brain fog and these sort of things for a long-term time, right? For some people, a year. According to the study carried out by hundreds of researchers under the aegis of the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation (IHME), a reference organization for health statistics, this level would be much higher than current estimates and would mean that these disorders have jumped by more than half since 1990. Researchers see this, among other things, as a consequence of the neurological disorders cannot be cured and therefore potentially persist for years until death. By far, strokes can cause the most disability and health problems. According to the study, they have caused the entire population to lose 160 million years of healthy life, an indicator supposed to go beyond simple life expectancy. An indicator supposed to go beyond simple life expectancy to take into account the real situation of people worldwide. This is followed by neonatal encephalopathy, a form of pathology which, as its name suggests, which I don't know if anybody understands what that means, affects a child from birth. Alzheimer's type dementias, then the neurological consequences of diabetes, meningitis, and epilepsy are next in ranking. So basically, neonatal encephalopathy is because it affects children from birth, as the longest or the most amount of years stolen from human life, right? Because your life is, from the get-go, is stolen, and then Alzheimer's is second in stealing your life. It steals the end of your life instead of most of your life of health. And then after that, it's diabetes, which causes neurological consequences, and meningitis and epilepsy are next in the ranking. So those are the top 5 neurological disorders That steal your life from you. As for the neurological after effects of COVID, I just asked this, which notably constitute as one of... the page just turned back to French randomly. Okay. Which notably constitutes of the aspects of long COVID, they appear to be in 20th place. So even though long COVID has only existed for maybe 3-4 years, it's already 20th place on stealing your life away. So stay away. Just because you haven't caught it yet doesn't mean you won't. And there's already been many studies showing that if you catch COVID multiple times, your life only gets worse. So catching it once, you should stop there. Don't try to get it anymore. It just compounds the danger. I'm serious. It really does compound the danger of your life never being the same again. Because people do think it's the flu, and it's not the flu. Catching the flu does not give you a neurological disorder. Usually. In terms of mortality, neurological problems killed more than 11 million people in 2021. According to the study here... and here remains a total of cardiovascular diseases is 19.8 million. So 11 million people die of neurological disorders, 19.8 million die of cardiovascular disease, which is often fatal more quickly. You may have a neurological disorder, but you might survive way longer than if you have a heart attack. Basically is what they're saying. Right, and then of course there's some comments on here that some, typical anti-vaxxer comments about how, COVID-19 vaccine destroyed my cells within days. And, sincerely somebody who doesn't understand science, because that's not what mRNA does. Horrible. With the abnormal aging of the population with heavy use of medications, which are nothing other than drugs. Medications and drugs are synonymous, actually. It cannot be otherwise. The same study would have to carry out in a population aged 75 and under. We'd probably find less alarming figures, obviously taking into account young people on narcotics. The typical, all these kids today doing drugs. In my day, you just died. What do you mean ADHD? In my day, you just got beaten for not paying attention. I don't know. I just thought there's 15 comments on this article. I'm trying to find a good one, but most of them are just the crazies, the crazies. This is all due to young people. If they didn't use their phones all the time, they wouldn't get brain cancer. That's all the comments are just angry. I'm assuming French people because this is a French website. So, if younger people just tried harder not to be unhealthy, they wouldn't be neurologically disordered. I don't know. It's just a bunch of boomers yelling at this cloud, yelling at clouds. That's your fault that you have epilepsy. I don't know. They're disorders, which means they are not, there's people, that just happens. Your body is like, yo, what if we did this? And then the rest of your body's like, how about nah? This doesn't work with the whole rest of us. Anyways, there's your update. Stay safe out there, anyone with neurological disorders. And I guess that's our next plan. Instead of cure for the common cold, we're going to look for cures to dementia. I'm sure people are already quite scared of dementia because you start forgetting things. You just become a baby again, and that's pretty scary. 80 or so years of, not 80. Let's go with 70 or so years of being a human, and suddenly they're like, baby, I'm baby now. That's not something to look forward to. Anyways, that's my story.
Yeah, old people are just bent kids.
Yeah. You start pooping in your diaper again. You need everyone to take care of you. I mean, it's circle of life, man. It's a circle of life.
Yeah. This is why they just wander off, and you get these silver alerts and signs in the freeway. Silver alerts, an old person has wandered off, and I'm like,
my grandma's missing. I think she's going to the store, but the store got bulldozed 10 years ago, and she doesn't remember.
Well, in big corporate news, I guess, McDonald's has a technical glitch that does not involve their shake machines. System failures at McDonald's were reported worldwide. This is according to AP's business writer Anonymous. System failures at McDonald's were reported worldwide Friday, shuttering some restaurants for hours and leading to social media complaints from customers in what the fast food chain called a technological outage that is being fixed. Chicago-based McDonald's Corp said the problems were related to a cybersecurity attack without giving more details on what caused them. We are aware of technology outage which impacted our restaurants. The issue is now being resolved, the burger chain said in a statement. We thank customers for their patience, apologize for any inconvenience this may have caused. Earlier, McDonald's in Japan posted on X, formerly Twitter, that operations are temporarily out on many of the stores nationwide, calling it a system failure. Website Down Detector also reported a spike in problems with the McDonald's app in the last few hours. Some McDonald's restaurants are working normally again after the outage, with people ordering in again and getting their food at locations in Bangkok, Milan, and London. Restaurant in Bangkok had plywood over the door with a sign saying technicians are updating the systems and apologizing for the inconvenience, even as customers were able to order again and pay digitally. A spokesperson from McDonald's in Denmark said the technology failure was resolved and and its restaurants were open. A worker in Milan restaurant noted that the system was offline for a couple hours and a technician worked them through getting it back up and running. Media outlets reported that customers from Australia to the UK had complained of issues when ordering, including a customer in Australia who posted a photo on social media saying a kiosk was unavailable. All McDonald's restaurants are connected to a global network. That is what's messed up, Pat Treek. Jet Lee, owner of several McDonald's restaurants in central Sweden near the Norwegian border, told local newspaper Nya Wemmelands Hedning. He said, that is the McDonald's news. Now, other news, business news. This is from Reuters.com. The writer's name is Maki Shiraki, again, Anton Bridge. You ever drive across the Anton Bridge? It's very nice. Japanese auto rivals Nissan and Honda are considering a strategic partnership to collaborate on producing key components for electric vehicles and artificial intelligence and automotive software platforms, the company said Friday. The potential partnership could help to developing economies of scale in producing EVs as Japan automakers face heavy competition from China's BYD and Tesla and others. Nissan was a pioneer in EVs with its all-electric Leaf model, but has struggled alongside other legacy automakers in the face of increasing competition from Nimbler new entrants. Nimbler. My eyes are all spotty. Emerging players are very aggressive and are making inroads at incredible speed, Nissan CEO Makoto Uchida told the press briefing. We cannot win the competition as long as we stick to conventional wisdom and a traditional approach. Honda's sales also lagged those of rivals, and battery-powered vehicles accounted for less than 0.5% of its worldwide sales and about 2.8 million cars over the first 9 months of 2023. Company data showed, that's the end sentence. The two companies signed a non-binding memorandum of understanding to look at areas of potential collaboration, but have yet to determine the scope. Honda President Toshiro Mibe said, they're open to working together in any region, both in Japan and overseas, Uchida said. Nissan has existing business alliances with Renault, Mitsubishi Motors, but these won't be affected by the potential alliance with Honda, he said. Nissan cooperates with Renault on EVs, mainly in Europe. The next Nissan electric Micra will share the same architecture as the Renault 5 and will be built in the same plant in northern France. Nissan and Renault last year reduced the scope of the years-long alliance, and Renault has since signed agreements with new partners such as China's Geely. Or Geely, sorry, Geely. Uchida and Nissan said Nissan and Honda were open to collaboration with existing partners should opportunities arise. The companies will explore cost-cutting measures, Honda's Mead said, adding that achieving cost-cutting effectiveness requires greater production levels. Honda is aiming to increase its ratio of electric cars and fuel cell vehicles to 100% of all sales by 2040. Nissan and Honda have yet to discuss a capital tie-up, but they are open to the possibility in the future, Mead said, or is it Mead? We are strapped for a time and need to be speedy. Made it rhymes. Kinda. In 2003, to be in a good position, we need a decision now. Nevertheless, that gives the company 6 years to work together on EVs, said Seiji Sugiura, senior analyst of Tokyo Research Institute. I read it as both companies trying to take their time rather than to rush into a hasty collaboration. Nissan's pursuit of a partnership was first reported in TV Tokyo. The Nikkei newspaper has reported specific measures could include the introduction of a common powertrain, joint procurement, and development of a common platform. There's your news on electric vehicles in Japan for today. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Let me order 4 of those. Is anybody there? Oh, I just don't hear you. Okay.
There we go. Now it's time to talk about Russia. That's kind of related to Asia. Halfly.
Part of it.
Insert segue here.
Most of it is in Asia.
This is by Lori Hinant, Vasilisa Stepanenko, Samya Kulab, and Hannah Arhirova from AP News. Coming out of Kiev. He and his parents were among the last in their village to take a Russian passport, but the pressure was becoming unbearable. I'm going to sneeze in the middle of the story, just warning you now. I can feel my nose wanting to sneeze. By his third beating at the hands of the Russian... That's not funny. By his third beating at the hands of the Russian soldiers occupying Ukraine's Kherson region, Vyacheslav Ryabokov caved. The soldiers broke 2 of his ribs, but his face was not bruised for his unsmiling passport photo taken in September 2023. It wasn't enough. In December, they caught the welder on his way home from work. Then one slammed his rifle butt down Rybkov's face, smashing the bridge of his nose. "Why don't you fight for us? You already have a Russian passport," they demanded. The beating continued as the 42-year-old fell unconscious. "Let's finish this off," one soldier said. A friend ran for Rybkov's mother. Russia has successfully imposed its passport on nearly the entire population of occupied Ukraine by making it impossible to survive without them. Coercing hundreds and thousands of people into citizenship ahead of the elections, Vladimir Putin has made certain he will win, an Associated Press investigation has found. But accepting a passport means that men living in occupied territory can be drafted to fight against the same Ukrainian army that is trying to free them. A Russian passport is needed to prove property ownership and keep access to health care and retirement income. Refusal can result in losing custody of children, jail, or worse. A new Russian law stipulates that anyone in the occupied territories who doesn't have a Russian passport by July 1st is subject to imprisonment as a foreign citizen. But Russia also offers incentives, a stipend to leave the occupied territory and move to Russia, humanitarian aid, pensions for retirees, and money for parents of newborns with Russian birth certificates. Every passport and birth certificate issued makes it harder for Ukraine to reclaim its lost land and children. I don't see how, but okay. Under the law, they now are Russian. Okay, sure. I can go print out a passport and look, see, I got... The people there aren't Russian and they're being coerced to do it. And a new citizen allows Russia to claim right, however falsely, to defend its own people against hostile neighbors. The AP investigation found that Russian government has seized at least 1,785 homes and businesses in the Donetsk region and Zaporozhye region alone. Ukraine's Crimean leadership is in exile reported on February 25th that of the 694 soldiers reported dead in recent fighting in Russian, 525 of them were likely Ukrainian citizens who had taken Russian passports since the annexation. How fucking disgusting. AP spoke about the system to impose Russian citizenship in occupied territories to more than a dozen people from the region, along with activists helping them escape and government officials trying to cope with what has become a bureaucratic and psychological nightmare for many. Ukraine's human rights ombudsman, Dmytro Lubanets, said almost 100% of the whole population who still live on temporary occupied territories in Ukraine now have Russian passports. Under international law dating to 1907, it is forbidden to force people to swear allegiance to hostile powers. But when has Russia ever cared about laws? Hello, they did an illegal war to begin with. When Ukrainians apply for Russian passports, they must submit biometric data and cell phone information and swear an oath of loyalty. People in occupied territories, these are the first soldiers to fight against Ukraine, said Katerina Rashaviska, a lawyer who helped Ukraine bring a war crimes case against Putin before the International Criminal Court. For them, it is logical to waste Russians' people when they could just use Ukrainians. Sorry, it's illogical to waste Russian people. Combination of force and enticement when it comes to Russian passports dates to annexation of Crimea in 2014. Russian citizenship was automatically given to permanent residents of Crimea, and anyone who refused lost rights to jobs, health, and property. Sorry, we can't hire you. You don't have a Russian passport. 9 months into Russian occupation of the peninsula, 1.5 million Russian passports had been issued there. According to statistics issued by the Russian government in 2015, but Ukrainians say it was still possible to function without one for years afterward. Beginning in May 2022, Russia passed a series of laws to make it easier to obtain passports for Ukrainians, mostly by lifting the usual residency and income requirements. In April 2023 came the punishment. Anyone in the occupied territories who do not accept Russian citizenship would be considered stateless and required to register with the Russian Internal Affairs Ministry. Russian officials threatened to withhold access to medical care for those without a Russian passport and said one was needed to prove property ownership. Hundreds of properties deemed abandoned were seized by the Russian government. You can see it in the passport stamps. If someone got their passport in August 2022 or earlier, they are most certainly pro-Russian. Passport was issued after that time. It was most certainly forced, said Alexander Rozum, a lawyer who left the occupied city of Berdyansk and now handles the bureaucratic gray zone for Ukrainians under occupation who ask for his help, including property records, birth and death certificates, and divorces. The situation is different depending on the whims of the Russian officials in charge of a particular area. According to interviews with Ukrainians and a look at Telegram social media accounts set up by occupation officials. Today I decided anyone who without blonde hair doesn't deserve to be a Russian citizen. Or something like that. In an interview posted recently, Yevgeny Balitsky, the Moscow-installed governor in Zaporozhye, said, anyone who opposed the occupation was subject to expulsion. We understand that these people could not be won over and that they would be dealt with even more harshly in the future, he said. Balitsky then alluded to making some extremely harsh decisions that I will not talk about today. Even children are forced to take Russian passports. A decree signed January 4th by Putin allows for the fast tracking of citizenship for Ukrainian orphans and those without parental care, especially if those parents were killed because they wouldn't get a passport. Who includes children who are detained in occupied territories. Almost 20,000 Ukrainian children have disappeared into Russia or Russian-held territories, which we've talked about before on this show. The illegal but somehow legal and allowed forced migration of Ukrainian children into Russia. It's an about eradication of identity, said Rashievska, the lawyer involved in the war crimes case. Indeed it is. Then the story goes into several cases of different people who have been forced to abandon their own identity and become Russian. Several people were interviewed for this story, but I don't want to go too long into it. It's mostly what you expect. People are scared. People have no choice. They get beaten to death if they don't sign up. And they are forced to become loyal Russian citizens. And any sort of Ukrainian identity, any ethnic Ukrainian identity is being bullied out of them and beat out of them. Ah, you think you're still Ukrainian? Well, I guess you deserve to get beaten up in an alley. So, some have even been threatened with getting shot, and
of course
it's just awful to read, really. Just scanning the things, the quotes from the people who are currently living in occupied territory is quite sad.
Election day in Russia. I wonder who's going to win that.
Yeah. But that's the story. On to yours.
Okay. All right. In the U.S., James Crumbley, father of Michigan school gunman convicted of manslaughter. This is from BBC. Bernd Bushman Jr. The father of 15-year-old Michigan school gunman who killed 4 students has been convicted of manslaughter. The trial heard that James Crumbley, 47, had ignored his son Ethan's mental health needs, buying him the handgun he used in November 2020 attack. If you buy your 15-year-old son a handgun, you should go to prison. End of fucking story. What the fuck's a 15-year-old going to do with a handgun except shoot people? He and his wife, who was convicted of the same charges, now both face a maximum of 15 years in prison. The case is thought to mark the first time the parents of a mass shooter have been held criminally liable. The couple are scheduled to be sentenced on 9 April. The jury deliberated for just over a day. After a nearly week-long trial, James Crumbley was in court Thursday evening for the verdict and appeared to show little reaction as it was read out. Their son killed fellow students Tate Meyer, Hannah St. Juliana, Madison Maldwin, and Justin Schilling, ages 16 through 16, 14, 17, and 17, with a semi-automatic handgun at Oxford High School. 7 others are also injured in the shooting. He is serving a sentence of life in prison without parole. Steve and Ally St. Julia lost their 14-year-old daughter Hannah, who they said was kind and always checked in on others. Steve St. Juliana, Hannah's father, said on Thursday evening that the prosecution of the Crumbleys was just the beginning steps when it came to dealing with gun violence in the U.S. Our children are dying on a daily basis of mass murders, and we do very little about this. We can put people on the moon. We can build skyscrapers, huge monuments like the Hoover Dam, and we can't. Well, Hoover Dam is not exactly a monument, and we can't keep our kids safe in schools. In a statement, attorney Ben Johnson said James and Jennifer Crumbley played a casual role in the deaths of the 4 students. The guilty verdict won't bring back the lives of the 4 students, but it represents one more step towards holding everyone responsible under the law, Mr. Johnson said. Early in the week, or closing arguments, the jury, 6 men and 6 women. Prosecutor Karen McDonald called the attack preventable and foreseeable. She argued that James Crumbley's actions had been rare and egregious. He did not take even the slightest measures to ensure his son was not a threat after giving him a semi-automatic pistol as a gift just days before the shooting, said the prosecutor. Prosecutors said the Crumbleys had not done enough to address their son's declining mental health. On the morning of the shooting, the 2 parents cut short a school meeting about disturbing drawing their son had made to go to work and declined to take him home. Wow. School officials sent him back to class without checking his backpack, which contained a gun. So he was being counseled that very morning with his parents, and the parents just said, don't bug us with this. I just got my kid a gun. It ain't my problem. Prosecutors said Crumbley's also failed to ensure the weapon was safely stored. Parents and gun owners have a responsibility to prevent children from accessing deadly weapons, said with Nick Soplina with the advocacy group Every Town for Gun Safety, in a statement adding, verdict further underscores the critical duty of responsible gun ownership. The Crumblies were charged by police within days of the killing. Initially, the parents were supposed to be tried together, but in November sought separate trials. And in other News Dump Friday news briefs, SpaceX Starship disintegrates after completing most of its third test. This is Reuters. Writer Joe Skipper, Steve Gorman, and Joey Roulette. They needed 3 people to write this. SpaceX's Starship rocket, designed to eventually send astronauts to the moon and beyond, completed nearly an entire test flight through space in its third try on Thursday, getting farther than ever before, but disintegrated on its return to Earth. During the webcast of the flight, SpaceX commentators said mission control lost communication with Starship for the 2 satellite systems simultaneously while the spacecraft was re-entering this planet's atmosphere at hypersonic speed. It was probably going too fast. The spacecraft at that point was nearing a planned splashdown in the Indian Ocean, about an hour after the launch from South Texas. Contact with Starship cut out moments after the live video feed from a camera mounted on the vehicle showed high-definition images of a reddish glow enveloping the silvery spacecraft from the heat of re-entry friction as it plunged earthward. A few minutes later, SpaceX confirmed that the spacecraft had been lost, meaning incinerated or broken apart during the stress of re-entry. For reasons that were left unclear, SpaceX opted to skip one of the test flight's core objectives in an attempt to reignite one of the Starship's Raptor engines while it coasted into shallow orbit. That milestone is considered key to its future success. Still, completion of many of Starship's intended flight objectives represented progress in the development of spacecraft crucial to the growing satellite launch business of SpaceX, founded by Elon Musk in 2002, and NASA's moon program. NASA Chief Bill Nelson congratulated SpaceX on what it called a successful test flight in a statement posted on social media platform. SpaceX President Gwynne Shotwell, that's her name, wrote on an X post that the test marked an incredible day. The 2-stage spacecraft, consisting of Starship cruise vessel mounted atop its towering super heavy rocket booster, blasted off from the company's Starbase launch site near Boca Chica Village in the Gulf Coast of Texas. The upper stage Starship reached peak altitudes of 145 miles. The spacecraft far exceeded its 2 past performances, both of which were cut short by explosions minutes after launch. The company had acknowledged in advance a high probability that the latest flight might similarly end with a spacecraft's demise before the mission profile was finished. SpaceX's engineering culture, considered more risk-tolerant than many of the aerospace industry's more established players, is built on a flight testing strategy that pushes spacecraft to the point of failure, then fine-tunes improvements through frequent repetition. They don't mind blowing stuff up at SpaceX, in other words. They actually probably enjoy it. There you go. There's my news dump, sort of, for this segment. Back to you.
I like blowing things up, even it costs billions. Lovely.
We love blowing things up.
All right, we talked about how people are forced to be citizens. What about people who want to be citizens of a country and the country does not make it easy for them? This is from Malta Times by AFP. A woman wears a t-shirt reading Italians without citizenship during a demonstration to ask for a reform of citizenship law in Italy. When rapper Gali sang, "I'm a true Italian," to 10 million television viewers last month, he spoke for hundreds of thousands of people born to immigrants in Italy who struggle to obtain citizenship. The 30-year-old musician, born in Milan to Tunisian parents, sang a version of Toto Cutugno's global hit, L'Italiano, the Italian, at the San Remo Music Festival, one of the biggest cultural events in Italy. In doing so, Gali, who was naturalized only at 18, put the issue of the so-called new Italians, as a second-generation immigrants are often known, center stage. Italy has one of the toughest citizenship regimes in Europe, with children born in the country to foreign parents unable to apply for Italian passport until they are 18. They have only 1 year to apply under a streamlined system. Otherwise, they must enter a costly and lengthy process, during which that time they are left in limbo. And trust me, being in visa limbo or citizenship limbo is not a fun place. Not fun at all. I feel Italian. I went to school here. Italian is the language I speak every day, but I wasn't a true Italian by law until I was 24, when I obtained citizenship, said Daniela Linonita, now a spokeswoman for campaign group Italians Without Citizenship. She describes the failure to allow children to become citizens as psychological violence. I agree. There's nothing more psychologically violent than growing up in a place, going to school for 18 years, learning the language, experiencing all the same thing your fellow Italians have also been experiencing for those 18 years, and then they tell you, you're not Italian though because your parents come from somewhere else. Okay, sure. I don't know anything about the place I came from, but I'm not Italian. Because where do I belong? Where do I belong? And then you have an identity freaking breakdown, psychological violence indeed. I mean, I've had a little bit of this as somebody who grew up. I grew up in New Mexico, which is a state in the United States, and then I moved to a place where people didn't know New Mexico was a state in the United States. They generally thought New Mexico was like a region of Mexico, that I was from Mexico, and they'd be like, why don't you just go back to your country? And I'm like, I'm in my fucking country. But I had experienced that for 10 years probably in school.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because even now I have to deal with like, where do I belong? I don't know. This is why I'm a global, I just call myself a global citizen. I just belong on Earth.
Existential crisis on the show here.
But I'm just saying,
where do I belong?
It's harder for people who are like biracial or binational, even I want to say, right, to really prove they belong anywhere. And actually, before we continue this article, I do want to mention there are countries that will let you become citizenships, but you still have to take the citizenship test, right? And then you discover that everything you learned in school for that 18 years was not enough to pass a citizenship test. But the people who, are Italian or are British or whatever, they don't need to pass the test when they turn 18, right? But because you're foreign, right, and you went to school, the same school everyone else went to, somehow you don't belong because you didn't pass a test, And that's famous. That's the thing in America as well. There's like a bunch of videos. You can Google it or YouTube on YouTube. American takes citizenship test for the first time and they fail it. But hey,
right.
At least they're still allowed to be citizens if
they don't
fail
teach
it.
Civics.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They don't teach civics in school. They don't teach anything in school we can use in life. I mean, they don't teach taxes, paying taxes. They don't teach how to drive anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like, whatever. Somebody can make money teaching you that later.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, what are we paying for
what
schools?
does it mean to be American? What does it mean to be Italian? If the people who are supposedly naturally Italian or naturally American can't even pass the test you need to pass to become that thing. It's crazy. No, it doesn't make sense. It's just money. You're right. People just make money off of it. Hey, I'll be your naturalization lawyer, and you're gonna pay me $10,000 so I get, like, when I was trying to get a visa here in the Netherlands, the only thing I could find was lawyers being like, pay me $2,000 and I'll do everything for you, and it's a guarantee. And I'm like, wait a minute, if it's such of a guarantee, right, that there's not going to be any problems, why don't I just do it my fucking self? It must be that really easy.
The guarantee,
right?
The guarantee isn't worth anything because if you get deported, what's he going to do?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, like, the visa I have right now, they were like, oh yeah, there's no problem. They're literally impossible to have problems with it. So I'm like, wait, if it's impossible to have problems with it, why don't I just do it myself? Why do I pay a lawyer to do it for me if it's so easy to get, right? So, anyways, yeah, people just want to make money off of immigration, even though immigration is natural and normal and it happens every time, every day, everywhere. There's no
People want to
country in the
make money
world
off everything.
that there's no immigrants going to, okay? Even China gets immigrants, right? Even people want to move to the worst countries ever. The immigrants are natural. Anyways, the spokeswoman has had little hope of change in the law under the current hard right government of Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. As we've talked about many times, she hates immigrants, allegedly, whose deputy Matteo Salvini regularly rails against immigration. Italy has long been a country of emigration, not immigration, and has taken an approach to citizenship that helps maintain ties with the wide diaspora. Nationality is based on blood ties, granted to those born to or adopted by Italian citizens. Okay, so here's our idea. Every single child gets adopted by an Italian citizen. Problem solved. Foreigners can obtain citizenship most easily if they have Italian relatives or marry an Italian. For the most part, it's a long and difficult path. Well, then you just make an illegal, marriage ring, right? Where you just have a bunch of foreigners being like, looking for Italian daughters and Italian sons. We'll pay you money. Wow, you're gonna pay me so you can get Italian citizenship easier? Children born and raised in Italy have no innate right to citizenship, except in the rare cases where their parents are unknown or stateless. They must wait until they become adults to apply, and then submit their application for citizenship between the ages of 18 and 19 with proof of uninterrupted residency in Italy. Oh, you went on holiday to Germany for a month? Sorry. No, it's not that like that. It's usually like you went somewhere for a year, I think is usually the case. The minimum of a year you weren't living. If they miss that window, it becomes a complex bureaucratic process which can take at least 3 years. It's the longest administrative procedure in Italy, said immigration lawyer Antonello Cervo. An Argentinian who has an Italian grandfather will be naturalized faster than a person born in Italy to foreign parents. He told AFP, for children who arrived in Italy at a young age, they must also wait until they are adults to secure citizenship in the same way as other foreigners. Someone born in a non-EU country must show 10 years of residency compared with the 4 for those born inside the bloc, and prove that they have the means to support themselves. At least 860,000 people born in Italy to foreign parents are currently eligible for naturalization, of whom 95% are aged under 18, according to the National Statistics Agency Istat. Previous attempts to reform the current system, which dates to 1992, have failed, the most recent in 2022, just before Meloni took office. The far-right Brothers of Italy party is opposed to granting citizenship to those born here to foreign parents, as some members have raised the specter of ethnic replacement. The thing that doesn't exist. You know what's ethnic replacement? Watching American TV shows. That's how easy it is to get ethnically replaced, by the way. Because culture is a fluid identity. It's not something that's... These are the box. Yeah. I'm Italian, and if I take a little tiny step out of the box, I'm no longer Italian. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
A concept promoted by white supremacists, as we all hopefully know, it's not real. Meloni has focused instead on raising the birth rate in Italy, which has an aging population. Since her coalition came to power, several groups agitating for reform have paused their efforts. We are afraid that our efforts will be in vain, or worse, that the nationalization process will be lengthened by the introduction of stricter checks, said Ionita. While waiting for a change in the government, we are trying to change mentalities of a cultural and community level, she added. Some progress has been made on this front. A bastion of political left in 2022 became the first commune to grant symbolic citizenship to all those born or raised in northern Italy. First, we need to change the concept of who is Italian within society, and then we can look up and change that on the political level, added Deepika Salhan, a member of another campaign group on the right side of history. Yes, this also goes into that article I read, in February, I believe, about how if you just get, what was it again, 13% of people to agree with you on a political change, that's enough. Just 13% or something like that. Or was it 32? It was quite a low number, right? It's not 50, it's not 90. It was a very low number. And I agree. I think there's a lot of people in every country who do not understand the plight of immigrants, the plight of foreigners, and how alienated they feel. I'm definitely here, right? I've talked to plenty of Dutch people who are like, wait, you have to do that? It's like, oh, you don't have to do that? I didn't know. I guess I'm the only one getting tortured over here. But yeah, well, of course you're not taught about it in school. The government doesn't want to tell you because they know, right? If 13% of people or whatever, if enough people know how terrible they're treating other people, they're going to try to change it. So of course the government or the system is not going to tell you how it's like to be the other, because then you might actually care about them. Anyways, keep your eyes open. Make sure you know how your neighbor's doing, and if you know any foreigners, they need any support, because the world is against them and wants them to suffer. All right, let's go ahead into our day in history. I'm laughing in pain. I don't think it's funny. It's just painful.
It's day in history. Day in history. 1614, in this day, Franciscus Sylvius, whose studies helped shift medical emphasis from mystical speculation to a rational application of the laws of physics, was born in Hanau, Germany. So the beginning of the end of burning witches. Cure all diseases, I guess. It's the beginning of it. In 1767, President Andrew Jackson was born. 1781, American revolutionaries won a strategic victory over the British at the Battle of Guilford Courthouse in North Carolina. In 1875, in his day, Pope Pius IX appointed John McCloskey the first American cardinal of the Roman Catholic Church. In 1917, during the first phase of the Russian Revolution, Tsar Nicholas II was forced to abdicate, thus ending the rule of the Romanov dynasty. So the Romanov dynasty ended today. Anastasia screamed in vain, as Mick Jagger famously said. In 1864, following a highly publicized affair, American actress Elizabeth Taylor wed British actor Richard Burton in Montreal. They divorced in 1974 and briefly remarried in 75 to 76. In 1965, about a week after Civil Rights March in Selma to Montgomery, Alabama was halted due to violent opposition, U.S. President Lyndon B. Johnson delivered his "We Shall Overcome" speech, in which he introduced voting rights legislation that was passed later that year. 1972, in this date, The Godfather, an epic drama about the organized crime, premiered to universal acclaim. The Academy Award-winning film was directed by Francis Ford Coppola and starred Al Pacino and Marlon Brando. 1990, the Congress of People's Deputies of USSR elected Mikhail Gorbachev to the newly created post of President of the Soviet Union. There you go. They've been having elections on March 15th ever since, I guess. 2003, Hu Jintao succeeded Jiang Zemin as the president of China. But you didn't know that one. 2011, anti-governmental protests were held in several cities across Syria, considered the beginning of the country's civil war. The county's civil war. It says the county's civil war. Sorry, can't read. Beginning of the county's civil war. This day in 2019, more than 1.5 million students participated in climate change protests around the world as part of Fridays for Future, a movement started by Swedish environmental activists. I'm going to learn how to read someday. Started by Swedish environmental activist Greta Thunberg. Our feature biography, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Birthday today. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, born on this day, March 15th, 1933, in New York City, New York. Died September 18th, 2020, at the age of 87 in Washington, D.C. Our featured event, Ides of March. Julius Caesar assassinated on the Ides of March. In 44 BC, Roman dictator Julius, don't call me Julie, Caesar, was launched, and his series was was launching was launching a series of political and social reforms when he was assassinated this day, the Ides of March, by a group of nobles, among whom were Cassius and Brutus. Et tu, Brute. 1813 is the birthday of Jon Snow. 1878.
Who's not real?
Reza Shah Pahlavi.
Or Jon Snow,
British physician.
Jon Snow, the
What?
news anchor?
No, Jon Snow, the British physician.
Oh, how many Jon Snows are there?
Reza Shah. I'm sorry, what?
How many Jon Snows are there?
There's that one. Reza Shah Pahlavi, Shah of Iran, was born in 1878. 1933, we already covered Ruth Bader Ginsburg's 91st birthday. I can't say her name, but it's her birthday. David Cronenberg, Canadian film director, born in 1943. And Ry Cooder, American musician, born in 1947. And what other day is it besides the Ides of March? Is National Shoe the World Day. That's right. Shoe the world. In other words, I think they're trying to just get a pair of shoes for everyone. And National Pears Helene Day. Do you know what Pears Helene Day is? It looks like you take a pear and you dip it in chocolate, or you pour chocolate all over it, which sounds great. It's got chocolate on it.
Sounds great to me.
It's also everything you think is wrong day. Okay. I'm going to be confused all day then. National Kansas Day. So those are the days that are for today. Everything you think is wrong day. I want to explore that further.
I think it's just like
March 15th recognizes everything you think of wrong day, a day where decision making should be avoided, as your thoughts are, according to the founder of this holiday, wrong. It is also a day created for some people to realize they are not always right. While starting a conversation, one might want to avoid using the words "I think." This observance may be a time for all to contemplate your own lack of knowledge. It's okay that one does not know everything. And if there is a need to feel as if you do, hold on, tomorrow will be here soon. Then again, you can think you do. Haha. Everything you think is wrong day, which I have been told my entire life. So, no problem there. Those are the days for today. Friday, March 15th, 2024, and before coffee.
All right. This has been Allison here. We are going into the weekend, so you have a good one out there. Have some fun. I know I'm going to have a busy Saturday tomorrow. So stay safe. We'll see you on Monday for Mucking Fun Day. And here is your mic drop moment.
I always wondered if there was a God, and now I know there is. And it's me.
You're not a god, Homer. Remember, Dad, all glory is fleeting.
So?
Beware the Ides of March.
No.
Dad, I know you think you're happy now, but it's not gonna last forever.
Everything lasts forever.
Don't you see? Getting what you want all the time will ultimately leave you unfulfilled and joyless.
Remove the girl.
Dad, you're not with your stonecutters now. There are no lackeys around to carry out your every...
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.